Hello, this is Flurry Moon. Welcome back to my channel. You guys absolutely loved the episode Iceberg. It is the most viewed video on my whole channel, and it makes me so happy people resonated with it so much. Thank you all for being patient, but the wait is now over because today we will be going over part 2 of the episode Iceberg, made by me with the help of the episode subreddit. I highly recommend watching part 1 if you haven't, especially if you know nothing about episode. Either way, I'm sure you would still enjoy this video on its own. Basically, we will be starting right back at the tip of the iceberg with more surface level topics, slowly making our way down to the bottom where all the weird, obscure, and sometimes even dark parts of episode will be brought to light. These are all the things I missed or was unaware of the first time around, and it's gonna get crazy. Level 1. Before we begin, since we covered the introduction to episode in part 1, this level of the iceberg will not include a lot of explanation about what the app is about and will be a little less surface level than the last video. With that, let's get right into the tip of the iceberg, the YouTuber era. There was a time on YouTube around 2018 where YouTubers would film and upload themselves playing and reacting to episode stories. I may be wrong, but I remember Gen X Pen being the one to really popularize this trend when she played Bad Boys Girl, making it into a fun series on her channel. Side note, this is actually pretty interesting since Bad Boys Girl is one of the few episode officials that was removed from the app. So it's pretty cool that the story is basically entirely documented on her channel. Anyway, this inspired many other popular YouTubers to do the same, as it was a pretty easy way to get views. Episode stories, especially officials, are known for their insane, out-of-pocket storylines and ridiculous gem choices. This made for great entertainment for the audience when their favorite YouTuber spent their real money on gems to get the good endings, and just seeing them react to the game. It also brought the viewers back for more, since most chapters end with a cliffhanger. Many viewers were left waiting anxiously for the next part to come out. This craze of episode reaction videos has died down throughout the years, but there are definitely YouTubers who still make this content and see a good amount of success. I think most creators began to feel burnt out over making the same sort of content every week, and some viewers felt the same, while others couldn't get enough of episode series and would constantly beg for the next chapters. Forced official stories. Upon downloading the app, you see that the game starts you off with a handful of stories that you must read multiple chapters of in order to unlock episode's complete catalog. This seems annoying, though simple enough, but what a newcomer may not realize is that these stories are all episode officials. You may recall from part 1, episode officials are stories bought or made by episode themselves as opposed to an independent author. These stories are highly criticized by the community for feeling rushed, lazy, and practically one big cash grab. You can't go 10 seconds without an unfair gem choice, and sometimes you even have to pay gems to get the good ending of your preferred story. It's extremely unfortunate that episode chooses to start off the experience this way, since it seems like it immediately turns new readers off to the app. What they don't know is there are thousands of amazing community stories that are just waiting to be read if they can just sit through some painful chapters. I don't blame these readers for deleting the app upon seeing what it's all about and deciding that it isn't for them. It's just a shame that episode still has this system in motion. Is episode a kid's game? This discourse feels like it's been happening since the beginning of time, and that is whether or not episode is a game meant for kids. This question could easily be answered by looking at the app or Google Play Store and seeing the 13+ rating. Some of you may disagree for some reason, but 13 is still a child. While it is 100% on parents to monitor and keep an eye on their children's online and social media habits, an app that caters to young teens should really stick to that. For instance, a PG-13 movie may have some suggestive scenes and slight nudity, but nothing too graphic. This leaves the community always arguing over overly sexualized titles and covers, language, and if maybe episodes should change their audience to 18+, or even 16+. I personally don't ever see this happening. I'm sure they make a massive profit off of kids spending their parents' money on gems because they want to wear the cute outfit to the in-game party. Although there are kids on the app, if an author explicitly adds a warning before each chapter that there are mature themes, an episode approves of the content to be posted, I don't really see a problem. Again, this is where parenting comes in. If there really is an issue with the media the child is consuming, that's when the parent should probably step in. I'm sure there will be arguments about this in the comments, but what do you guys think? Level 2. We are now entering level 2 of the iceberg, so we're past the introduction and now we will be getting a little deeper and into the fun stuff. So let's go. Cursed animation update. On January 18th, 2023, Episode launched an update that, going forward, some character animations would be tweaked a bit. This seemed pretty standard, as Episode is always updating the user experience with new hairstyles, outfits, and animations. This time, though, previously existing animations would be slightly altered, which is always risky territory, since readers and authors can clearly see a difference, as we have seen these specific movements for years now. But I don't think anyone expected the outrage this simple update would cause. Posts began to swarm the Episode subreddit, with the community sharing screenshots, expressing their confusion and mostly disgust over these new animations. Two main aspects were changed. During some movements or facial expressions, the mouths were altered to look more downturned and longer, if that makes any sense. And the biggest culprit, furrowed eyebrows. During an angry or uncomfortable animation, lines were added in the middle of the character's eyebrows to create a furrowed look. This honestly just looked really bad. There's no other way to say it. Although it was Episode's idea of making things more realistic looking, most people just thought it looked like dirt or a unibrow. Unpopular opinion, I don't think it looked too bad on some of the male characters, especially if they initially had bushier eyebrows, but in my opinion, it just looked so out of place and weird on the girl avatars. Most readers were not pleased, while authors weren't so happy that they now had to work with these weird-looking expressions in their stories, especially when the originals were just fine. Others thought they weren't so bad and actually enjoyed the new animations, though they were definitely the minority. Due to the overwhelming backlash on January 20th, just 2 days after first launching the update, Episode quickly brought back the old animations. All was right in the Episode community. I think this is a good example of why more realistic shouldn't always be the goal to strive for. If I wanted something realistic, I would probably just watch a live-action series or movie. The charm of Episode is that it's cartoony, and this is exactly why I miss when ink was popular. I could talk about ink style and why it's my personal favorite forever, but we'd never get to the rest of this iceberg, so moving on. The Ruby Tiara. This ink story gets its own section because of how truly monumental it is. In part 1, we went over iconic community stories that, looking back, are not nearly as good as we remember them being, but the Ruby Tiara by Wincy W solidifies itself as one of the best, if not the best story on the app. The plot follows your main character going on a trip with your best friend, Angel. Tragedy strikes when the plane gets attacked and malfunctions, causing you to fall out, finding yourself in a different dimension in the kingdom of Athenia. Now, being the only woman who can fight and defend herself, you must find your way back home, all while accompanying your new friend, who looks identical to Angel, and trying to play nice with the king and the brutal queen of the kingdom. This story has so many moving parts, with each choice you make gaining influence points, which actually changes the trajectory of your time in Athenia. Your choices can determine whether other characters live or die, making it a thrilling read that does a great job of showcasing that your choices indeed do matter. You can choose between two love interests, King Cletus and his royal guard Josh, or you can just not choose anyone, which is really refreshing. Although I'm not sure why anyone would go with Cletus, but whatever. This story has multiple endings, three-dimensional characters, heartbreak, death, and probably the most likable main character on the app. Unfortunately, because the story is only available in ink, many readers won't even give it a chance due to their dislike for the art style. A part of me understands this point of view, especially if you join the app after the ink era, therefore having no nostalgia link to it, but I think this story is too much of a gem to ignore, and if you can get over your preference, I don't think you'll be disappointed. The author, Wincy W, has since left Episode, continuing to write stories on Romance Club, another visual novel app. Some say this is due to Episode's strict guidelines, resulting in authors leaving to create their stories elsewhere with more freedom. The Ruby Tiara is so good that I would definitely consider downloading this other app to read more of her work, and I'm not sure there are many other authors I would do this for. In-app ads. We all know there is a big problem with overly sexual and inappropriate themes on Episode, but what I don't see enough discourse about is the sheer number of inappropriate ads before you even get to the story. The amount of weird, questionable ads I have gotten before a chapter is really something. I can't get into it too much since YouTube will hate me, but the ads are usually for other chapter apps similar to Episode. It will show characters with weird choices, inappropriate animations, and just overall uncomfortable vibes. As an app with such a large following, you would think Episode would look into this, but nope. Let me know if you guys have the same problem, because it feels like I'm the only one. Episode forums taken down. The episode forums were a place where, similar to the episode subreddit, fans of the app came together to discuss various topics relating to episode. These included story recommendations, authors supporting one another, guideline discussions, and arguably most importantly, coding help. Since late 2018, you can only create your own story by coding and directing it yourself on a computer. As mentioned last time, this is incredibly time-consuming and requires a lot of trial and error. I myself have given my best shot at coding a story, and it is not for the weak. But it was far easier with the help of the forums. I swear, every time I had a coding issue, someone on the forums had already posted about it, and there was already a commenter with a solution. This was incredibly helpful for authors to help each other to make the best stories they could make. That was until June of 2024, when the forums were announced to be closing down. The post reads, "On June 28th, we'll be closing down the episode forums. This was a difficult decision, but after reviewing the number of members and activity here, it became apparent that this platform has not only decreased significantly over time, but we also found that other readers and writers from the episode community have come to prefer a more real-time style of discussion. So starting today, we are happy to announce that our Discord server, which will also include a forum section, is now open to everyone." This left the community heartbroken because although maybe there weren't posts being made 24/7, authors were constantly still logging onto the site looking for coding advice that might help them. But to their dismay, if they try to look up any of those posts now, they will be met with an error screen because every single post on the episode forums is now gone forever. This is going to be a huge blow to the community, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if creators became a lot slower with their updates going forward without the help of the forums. The Discord server has been met with mixed reviews, but mostly complaints that it's a mess and it's just not the same. Why can't we have both? I prefer the forums as everything is organized on there. I don't even use Discord much. It's just gross considering there's years of hard work going down the drain. I feel the same way. Discord has already become a mess and people are spitting profanities at each other and sending indecent messages. The forums were always very peaceful and well controlled. We didn't have to deal with trollers who spammed everything or people swearing at each other. The forums has been the key to sharing, creating, supporting, and promoting content for episode for so long. All of that is going to be erased within the next few weeks, which I believe to be the absolute wrong decision. Thankfully, a Reddit user by the name of AOWolf made the discovery that you can still access the forums using the Wayback Machine. Although you can't search anything, you can view the posts, and this has been a lifesaver for the users who are feeling the loss of the site. For now, we have the Discord server, the documented forums on the Wayback Machine, and of course, the episode subreddit. Also, side note, the closing of the forums actually made researching for this video really hard. I wrote most of part 1 months ago, so I had the forums to help me when looking into older stories and discussions. Rest in peace to the episode forums. Episode live action movie. This is a last minute addition since this drama is happening currently. Basically, episode started teasing something exciting on their official Instagram page. It started with a coming soon post, followed by a series of cropped images with cryptic captions that would eventually connect to each other as a banner on their account. This is a tactic used by many companies and creators to make a big reveal, all while building anticipation. The followers, however, were instantly not impressed and honestly just wanted the exciting news without all the suspense. I think the community feels as though they've been screwed over many times with these updates that, well, you remember the cursed animations from a few entries ago. Other, less jaded readers were excited for the possible new outfits, hairstyles, not horrible animations, or even a new, easier way to code stories. Fans thought that maybe they would even bring back the mobile creator that was taken away in 2019. Those expectations instantly died when we were met with this post, clearly showing a real woman. That's when people started putting 2 and 2 together that this was basically nothing to do with the app and improving it. This is most likely a live action movie. This honestly would be mildly interesting if episode chose a community story to adapt into live action, but why on earth should we expect that when they can choose one of their own? This story was confirmed to be Feel Me and episode official. This is all we currently know about this entry. Most people are underwhelmed, but not surprised. Readers feel as though episode doesn't listen to their concerns or ideas anyway, but it's still unfortunate that they're wasting time on something that nobody really asked for. But who knows, maybe I'm being too hard on the project. It could easily be something great. Or not. We'll just have to see. Okay, let's ignore how horrific I look right now because we have an update on Feel Me the movie. That sounds weird. Basically, the trailer just came out. I actually think it looks better than I thought it was gonna be, but a lot of people say it looks nothing like the story. Like, they read the story and they don't remember any of that. So they must have changed a lot. Go to YouTube if you want to watch it. It doesn't look that bad. Doesn't look that great either. More iconic community stories. In part 1, we went through some community stories that have made a huge influence in the community. So I thought we would speedrun a few more that I forgot to mention in part 1. Top Streamer, Deep Desire, Barely Mine, or Pregnant by the Nerd. Trapped, Play Dirty, My Sister's Crush, Stay the Night, Dirty Sassy Teenagers, Thick as Thieves, Stripped, Under You, and personal underrated favorite of mine, Penny for Your Thoughts. You guys, if you haven't read that, it's unfinished, but it's so nice. Level 3. We are now entering the second to lowest tier, meaning that we are not at the super obscure stuff yet, but you're a real episode veteran if you know this stuff. Pregnant by ... Before mafia stories plagued every genre list, there was a different trope that had readers in a chokehold. A lot of people nowadays are not the biggest fans of a pregnancy storyline. There is definitely a small group of users who will seek out these stories, but for the most part, fans will click out of a story when this trope is introduced. This, however, was not always the case. There was a time on episode where pregnancy stories ran the app. There was no escaping the pregnant by ... surge. We touched on this a bit in part 1, but I thought it deserved its own section due to how weird and extremely inappropriate some of these are. Let's take a look at a few iconic examples and also some more obscure ones. Pregnant by a Killer. Pregnant by a Killer by Amy T was probably one of the most iconic pregnancy stories on the app. Also, take a shot every time I say pregnancy. This may be because the author took advantage of the already trending concept by mixing the new rising in popularity trope, kidnapped by a gang leader. What am I saying right now? In this story, our 17-year-old main character is trying to live a fun and fulfilling life while dealing with her outrageously strict parents who control her clothing, plans, and most importantly, her dating life. In the first couple of chapters, she can barely stand next to a boy without her parents losing it on her. A blowout fight with them about a kiss with her boyfriend causes her to run away and move in with her best friend. They go out to a club, something she could never have done while under her parents' roof. The night turns sour when her friends become angry with her, telling her to leave, and she also catches her boyfriend with another girl. She finds herself at the bar, and this is where she meets our striking love interest, or is he? ? We'll get to that. Liam. Why is it always Liam? She then, feeling vulnerable and alone, hooks up with this mysterious stranger. Curious to know more about him, she follows him out of the club only to catch him killing a man. Not wanting to risk a witness running free, he takes her back to the gang, where she then finds out her boyfriend is a member, turning out to be Liam's little brother. So she hooked up with her boyfriend's older gang leader brother. I don't know, you guys. The main character falls pregnant with the leader's child, his first son, so she gets stuck there, even getting sent on illegal drug missions when she is fully pregnant. The story was an absolute fan favorite, accumulating over 20 million reads on the app. That was until it was taken down by Episode back in 2020. This, of course, is because of the extremely dark and disturbing themes. At the time it was written, this type of story with seemingly no boundaries was pretty standard, but after the 2019 guideline change, there was no way it would survive on the app. Although nowadays, you would think readers would condemn this story for glorifying abusive relationships, a lot of users speak about this story in high regard. I guess there's some respect to be had for writing about the realistic and horrifying side of gangs, as opposed to the false glamorization of a dangerous leader who falls for you, showering you with affection and protection. Ooh, that rhymes. I didn't even notice. This isn't the reality, and in a way, it was refreshing to see an example of what would most likely happen to someone in this situation. Although this may be the case, I can see why it's no longer allowed on the app. The author actually screen recorded every chapter and uploaded the story in its entirety to YouTube, although there's no proper ending as she never finished writing it. There was actually major controversy with chapter 11 of this story, where Liam the main character's parents. This scene was so graphic that the author had to make some changes, but even the finished product is a tough read. When Amy T published the screen-recorded chapter to YouTube, she revealed that she made Liam extra evil in this scene because she was so sick of the readers making excuses for the character and rooting for him. She explained how she did go a bit overboard on the graphic content in this scene and admitted to breaking episode guidelines, mentioning how in the original scene, the main character's dad gets his toes chopped off. Oh my god. She also apologized for not putting a proper content warning before the chapter, and it just seems like this chapter was posted from an emotional state since she did not appreciate readers misinterpreting her story. I guess Liam is not supposed to be a love interest after all. I think? I still don't know, you guys. Whoops, I'm pregnant. Whoops, I'm Pregnant was an episode official story that was supposed to be a real milestone for the app. The description read, "Surprise, you're pregnant, but you're a virgin. How did that happen? Will you tell your friends? Your boyfriend?" And the million-dollar question, who's the father? This seemed like nothing special upon reading, but this story was promoted to have the first ever episode baby. Now, we had the holding baby animation for a long time, but the baby was simply a prop that was just a little blanket, you know? This, however, had readers thinking we would have a real baby avatar with a face, eyes, hair, and maybe even the ability to customize. However, players were shocked to find after reading almost the entire story that the first ever episode baby was just a still image of a cartoon baby. That's it. I actually remember reading through this whole story because I was excited to see the baby, and I was so disappointed when it was basically clickbait. I'm not sure when, but Episode deleted this story after a while because it was just a big disappointment. Although I haven't seen a whole lot of players want babies in the game, there are definitely people within the community who want child models, since it's kind of awkward using adults but sizing them down to look like children. Some players do think it may be a bad idea to have kid avatars though, since sickos and trolls can make inappropriate stories using them. This is the only reason that makes sense to me, but it is a little jarring reading a story and a 4-year-old looks like this. Pregnant by my student. The fact that this author has multiple stories in the Iceberg, you know things are gonna get weird. Pregnant by My Student by Noob Loop, what a name, is a story from around 2018-ish that, well, it's pretty straightforward. The description reads, "You had sex with a bad boy who has a dark secret. Will you leave him for a hot billionaire crush?" With 45.3 million reads on the app, this story was huge back in the day. It was so popular that there was a sequel, Pregnant by My Student, Monster, where the main character's daughter from the first story also gets pregnant by a mafia leader. I'll be honest, I never read these stories, but I found a post in the episode subreddit that pretty much sums up how unhinged it is. I'm playing Pregnant by My Student, and I don't know what love interest to pick. It's between the man whose family killed my father, the man who almost killed me, or the man who was a creep to me at the bar and set up a surveillance camera in my office. Although these pregnancy-themed stories made the app unbearable at times, they did bring us the memes. Many players made their own pregnant by fill-in-the-blank parody stories, making fun of how ridiculous they were. Pregnant by My Twin Student's Gang Leader Dad is a classic. I highly recommend just typing in pregnant by and going through all the chaotic titles and descriptions. I'm not sure why the cliche had everyone so obsessed, but this craze is long gone now. Homewrecker Drama. Homewrecker by Jory Mar? You guys, I never know how to say people's names, do I? Homewrecker by Jory Mar started being published on the app in 2020. The description reads, "Your ambition landed you the perfect job, but that is not enough when you fall in love with your married boss. Now you will do anything to make him yours." This story immediately caught readers' attention due to its controversial plot, and playing as the villain really felt like a breath of fresh air when it seems like every main character on episode suffers from the Mary Sue effect, being described as perfect in every way and can virtually do no wrong. Although, of course, there were people who didn't care for it and just couldn't get past how they had to play as Carly, this awful person who knows no boundaries, a lot of readers felt it was the best story of 2020. It was dark, heartbreaking, entertaining, and the outrageous twist ending really solidified it as one of the greats. That is, until around July of 2024, users started noticing similarities between Homewrecker and a 2004 telenovela, Ruby. The plot on IMDb reads, "An ambitious woman of humble background and stunning beauty is determined to change her poor situation Liveaction, using her seductive skills on a millionaire doctor. Yes, this sounds a little similar, but nothing outrageous. But upon comparing more aspects and scenes from the two, there definitely seems to be some truth to this plagiarism claim. There is a post in the episode subreddit that does a great job of showing consistencies, so let's get into some of them. First, there is what seems to be inspiration that, in my opinion, probably wouldn't be enough of a ripoff to get the author into any sort of trouble. This includes similarities between the looks of Carly and Ruby, the gay best friend who enables their evil actions, and some similar plot points like both girls drugging their love interests. But it doesn't end there. There are many scenes in Homewrecker that are almost a carbon copy of Ruby. One of the most damning examples of this is when Carly and her friend Cassie are arguing on a glass bridge when Cassie falls through the glass to her death. This scene is quite literally stolen from the telenovela, where Ruby and her friend Sonia are arguing on a glass bridge and Sonia falls through the glass to her death. This scene is so specific, it's hard to believe it's just a coincidence, especially factoring in the other similarities. Arguably the biggest aspect that has readers crying plagiarism is Homewrecker's ending. At the end of Homewrecker, Carly crashes her car after a police chase. She's presumed dead, but she actually disfigured and living in a secret cabin with her niece, now using her to finish what she started, which was seducing Dorian, the love interest, and breaking up his relationship. You could have guessed that Ruby's ending is incredibly similar. Instead of getting into a car crash, Ruby falls down the stairs into a glass table, very telenovela of them, and is left disfigured that way. Ruby, with her beauty gone, manipulates her niece to finish what she started, which was seducing Alejandro, the love interest, and breaking up his relationship. And she also lives in secret in a cabin. It's like the same thing, you guys. When the episode subreddit caught wind of this news, the discourse began. Was Jorimar just heavily inspired by the telenovela? Did she knowingly plagiarize? Could this even be classified as plagiarism? There's one comment that I feel sums it up pretty nicely. When I think about determining if a story should be considered plagiarism, I consider this. If that story was made into a TV show, would there be legal trouble? If Homewrecker was made into a TV show, I believe there would be significant legal issues due to the extensive similarities to Ruby. Many readers were felt disappointed that their favorite story was not really original content. The author, Jorimar, supposedly made a response saying she was inspired by Ruby but did not copy it. I couldn't find any screenshots of this, but I do believe she said that, because it would be pretty hard to claim she had no idea what Ruby was, because it's painfully obvious. You guys, the glass scene, like that gets me. She also made a jab at those who criticized her in Homewrecker's sequel, Homewrecker Act 2, by making one of the characters break the fourth wall, talking about plagiarism. This made readers more pissed off because she clearly doesn't care how much trouble this could get her into, or how much her fans are hurt by her actions. Some users in the community claim that this is not a new thing for Jorimar, as some of her other stories have also been called out for copying. Episode Instagram era. Around 2019, the episode fandom was booming on Instagram, of all places. More specifically, confession pages started to rise in popularity. These accounts basically would collect opinions about episode stories or just the app in general and post them while striking debates in the comments. Another type of account were the tea pages. These users would post about all the drama within the community. One of the most popular tea pages was at teatime.epi. This creator would get into lots of trouble for speaking her mind about toxic stories. It's hard to find much about her anymore since the account seems to be gone, but I believe she would call out mafia authors and would feel the wrath of their massive fan bases. Teatime Epi did have a good amount of supporters though, even having fan pages and edits of her episode avatar made. Some say she is under a new username, Love You So Much Girl, or LYSM Girl. I did find this account when scripting part 1 about 4 months ago, but the page seems to be gone now, so it's just bad timing. Bottom level. We are finally at the bottom tier of the episode Iceberg part 2. Thanks to everyone who has made it this far, and let's get right into the obscure, the dark, and the odd parts of episode. Sore loser. You may remember earlier in the Iceberg, we mentioned the author Noob Loop, who wrote Pregnant by My Student and Pregnant by My Student Monster. But even with how insanely popular these stories were, you may not remember this one by the same author. This is because the story was removed off the app for how horrifyingly disturbing it was. The story followed Katie, a teenage girl who beats an anonymous man in an online video game, resulting in him kidnapping her. A post reminiscing about this story reads, Sore Loser by Noob Loop. So crazy it got banned twice from the app. Some real sick shit. A guy who was in love with the main character's mom kidnaps her, castrated her friend, kills the main character's mom, puts a shock collar on the main character so she can't leave, and essays her multiple times. I don't remember much else, but those moments definitely stood out. I read it when I was young and I was so disturbed I couldn't stop reading. Shit was wild. There was even a petition made on change.org pleading with Episode to take down the story. And you could have guessed it is no longer on the app. Also, fun fact, Noob Loop ended up making music based on this story in it. Sure is something. It's on YouTube, so I would recommend checking it out if you honestly want a good laugh. The Black Rose Society. The Black Rose Society by Olivia Peterson is a classic story from the early days of Episode. The story is still on the app and has 15 chapters. The description reads, find out if the popular girls in school are killing virgins and bathing in their blood to stay young and hot forever. Oh my god. There would never be anything like this nowadays. Ever. It begins with the main character, Vera, finding a black rose on her locker with a note attached inviting her to a party held by the most popular girl in school, Liz. She is warned by the love interest, Odin, not to go because he thinks Liz had something to do with a former student leaving school. Vera thinks the student just transferred, so she goes to the party. That's where she finds one of her friends naked, masked, serving Liz and calling her master. You guys, it's unhinged. Okay, correction. I realized something. Vera only goes to the party if you make her do that. I chose to go to the party, and that's where I saw all that weird shit go down. But you could also choose not to go to the party and go on a date with Odin instead. So, choices actually used to matter, you guys. Like, actually. Okay, that's it. Liz invites you into the Black Rose Society, and it is your choice what you do next. Choices matter in this story, and there are 3 different endings you can get. If you can handle how awkward and glitchy classic style is, it's honestly a wild read, and I do recommend it if you're in need of something truly chaotic. Like, if you thought Ink stories were wild, classic is a whole different beast. The Revenge of My Beloved. The Revenge of My Beloved by C. Cruz is a story that started catching readers' attention around 2021 due to its disturbing and frankly racist themes. I know, shocker. Episode authors being racist? Who would have thought? The story follows our main character, a soldier whose mother was killed by terrorists. And you guessed it, her love interest is one of the terrorists. Okay, maybe you didn't guess that, because why would you? This story obviously is hated by the community due to its insensitive storyline and the ignorant and harmful portrayal of Muslims. I'm not going to get too into the story because I'd rather not give this author any more attention, but the story is still up, which is wild on Episode's part since they've removed stories for so much less. Here's a snippet of a comment from the Episode subreddit I thought I should add. This in particular actually made me really sad and angry. Most Episode users are children around 12 to 13 who are still shaping their views and beliefs on the world. Stories like this are really harmful in shaping their views towards Muslims. Not only that, but imagine how disheartening it is to be a 13-year-old girl finally finding a story with Muslim characters just like her, only to be met with something like this. Never too late. Trigger warning, suicide. In part 1, we discussed a story a Reddit user was trying to find the name of. OP remembered some of the characters' names and some of the storylines, but that's about all we had, besides a comment claiming the story has been deleted because the author committed suicide. I personally wanted more information, so I included it at the bottom of the iceberg, hoping someone who knows what happened would see it. I got a few comments and one DM on Instagram that answered our questions. The story is called Never Too Late by J. Denise. Unlike what we thought before, the story is actually still up on the app, but unfortunately we were also right about the author having committed suicide. Her bio on Episode reads, I'm gone. A friend may or may not post the ending of Never Too Late on my Instagram account. Upon searching her Instagram, you'll see a lengthy post on October 22nd, 2022, where she mentions her mental health deteriorating and to expect the worst if she is gone for a year. There were a few comments pleading with J. Denise and wishing her well, but ultimately on December 22nd, 2022, a post was made supposedly from her best friend announcing that the author had died on November 29th, 2022. The friend explained that they were given permission to finish the story but decided against it. This is such a heartbreaking ending to this journey that was initially just a reader trying to find a story they used to like. If this is all true, I feel awful and I hope J. Denise rests in peace. Where it all started. For our very last entry of the episode Iceberg, we will be taking a look at the first story to ever be available on the app, and that is Campus Crush by Tom W. and Melissa O. With a whopping 113 chapters, the description reads, "Your first day on campus and life couldn't be harder. Can you navigate classes, dating, and a mysterious benefactor?" This story really is what started it all, and many players have a lot of nostalgia connected to it. Because it was so long, with such short chapters, there were a lot of people who were not pleased with it and didn't like the ending, but there was a sequel and a few more spin-offs, so this story was really important to the beginning of episode. It's crazy to see just how much episode has changed and grown over the last decade. Sure, the art style and animations are technically a lot better now than they were for episode's first attempt, but you can't beat the quirky charm these original stories had and still have. The choices actually mattered and affected how your playthrough went, instead of empty choices every official story has now. I can always appreciate how at the beginning of a business venture, it feels like the creators know that this is their one shot at success, so the effort is unmatched. Now that episode has all the success they need, they know they don't really have to try so hard anymore. People will download and play their game no matter what they put out, and I can't help but feel like they rely on community authors' drive and creativity for their app's success. But I do think people forget the time where episode officials did have a good amount of effort and attention, so this one is for Campus Crush. Well, that's about it for this week's video. Thank you for the crazy amount of support recently. I had no idea so many people would be interested in this topic or any of my videos really. This will be my last episode deep dive for a while, but comment below if you'd like a deep dive on any other topics. I will definitely be doing more of these in the future. I will also be continuing my series where I react to my old episode story, so make sure to check that out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I'll see you next week. Bye!